He was a billionaire who could control companies with a single decision. But in that moment, he stood frozen in his own mansion, watching a poor young woman do something no expert, no doctor, no money in the world had been able to do. His autistic son, the boy who hadn't stopped screaming for weeks, was suddenly silent. Not just silent. Smiling. And the most shocking part? She was holding scissors. If you've ever believed that money can solve everything, this story might change your mind. And if stories about love, family, and second chances mean something to you, take a moment to subscribe. Because what you're about to hear stays with you. It was exactly 2 o'clock on a foggy Thursday afternoon in San Francisco. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful, but heavy. Maya Stevens pushed her cleaning cart slowly down the polished hallway of the Campbell mansion, careful not to make a sound. Even the wheels seemed too loud in that house. 3 weeks. That's how long she had been working there. 3 weeks, and she still couldn't get used to the silence. Not the calm kind of silence, the painful kind. The kind that settles into walls after something breaks, and never really leaves. At 28, Maya had already lived a life that felt too long. A single mother, raising her 6-year-old daughter Sophie in a small apartment across the city. Every dollar mattered. This job wasn't just a job. It was survival. She tightened her grip on the cart, thinking about Sophie's smile that morning. The way she hugged her before school like the world depended on it. And in many ways, it did. Then suddenly, a scream shattered the silence. Sharp, high, desperate. Maya froze. Her heart dropped instantly. She knew that scream. Everyone in that house knew it. Tyler. 8 years old. The only son of Ethan Campbell, one of the richest tech CEOs in Northern California. But none of that mattered when Tyler screamed. Because it didn't sound like a child throwing a tantrum. It sounded like a child drowning. No, no, no. The cries echoed through the mansion, bouncing off marble floors and high ceilings. Maya closed her eyes for a second. She felt it in her chest, that familiar pain. Not fear. Recognition. Because she had heard that kind of cry before. From her own daughter. Not the same condition, but the same struggle. A world that doesn't understand you. Pushing too hard, too fast. Footsteps rushed down the hallway. Ethan Campbell appeared, moving quickly, his usually perfect appearance now falling apart. At 35, he looked like a man carrying something far heavier than wealth. His shirt wrinkled. His eyes hollow. His hair slightly unkempt. Grief had a way of showing itself, even on the richest men. "Sarah," he called out, his voice tight. A woman in her mid-40s hurried down the stairs. Sarah Miller, the highly trained specialist brought in to help Tyler. On paper, she was perfect. Years of experience. Degrees. Methods. Protocols. And yet, nothing had worked. "He won't cooperate," Sarah said, slightly out of breath. "I've tried everything." Upstairs, Tyler screamed again. Louder this time. More desperate. Maya's hands slowly tightened around the handle of her cart. She didn't need to be told what was happening. She had already noticed it over the past few days. Tyler's hair had grown long, falling into his eyes. And every time someone tried to cut it, this happened. For Tyler, it wasn't just a haircut. It was a storm inside his mind. A loss of control. A threat. "School called again," Ethan muttered, rubbing his forehead. "They said he can't keep coming like this." Sarah sighed, clearly frustrated. If this continues, they may remove him from the program. Maya felt her stomach twist. She knew what that meant. Isolation. A child being pushed out, not because he didn't belong, but because the world didn't know how to handle him. Upstairs, the crying changed. It wasn't loud anger anymore. It was something worse. Fear. Real fear. I have a meeting in an hour, Ethan said, almost to himself. I don't know what to do anymore. There was a pause. Then Sarah spoke again, quieter this time. Maybe it's time to consider stronger medication. Ethan went still. I don't want to drug my son, he said, barely above a whisper. Maya looked down at the floor. Her chest tightened. She couldn't stay still anymore. Slowly, quietly, she began walking toward the stairs. Not because it was her job, but because something inside her wouldn't let her ignore that cry. Each step felt heavier, each scream pulling her closer. When she reached the top, she stopped near the half-open door. Inside, Tyler was curled in the corner of his room, small, shaking. His hands pressed tightly over his ears as if trying to block out the world. His hair fell messily across his face. Sarah stepped forward with scissors. Just a little trim, Tyler. No, he screamed, collapsing onto the floor. Ethan stood helpless at the doorway. A powerful man, completely powerless. Tyler, I'll buy you anything you want, he said, trying to bargain. But Tyler wasn't listening. He was gone, lost in fear. Maya felt something break inside her. This wasn't stubbornness. This wasn't bad behavior. This was pain. And without thinking, she gently knocked on the door. Excuse me. Mr. Campbell, she said softly. Ethan turned, irritation flashing for a second. Maya, not now. I'm sorry, she interrupted carefully. I think I can help. Sarah let out a short laugh, clearly unimpressed. And what exactly would you suggest? She asked. Maya hesitated. Her heart was racing. But then she looked at Tyler again. And she stepped forward. My daughter, she struggles too, Maya said quietly. And sometimes, the only thing that helps is giving her control. Ethan frowned slightly. What do you mean? Maya took a breath. Let him decide, she said gently. Let him feel like it's his choice, not something being forced on him. Sarah shook her head immediately. That's not how this works. Children need structure, not control. Maya lowered her gaze. I understand. I didn't mean to overstep. She turned to leave. But just as she did, a small voice stopped her. Wait. Maya froze. She slowly turned back. Tyler had lifted his head. His eyes, red and tearful, were looking straight at her. The room went completely still. Who are you? He asked, his voice trembling. Maya slowly knelt down near the doorway, keeping her distance. My name is Maya, she said softly. I help take care of the house. Tyler stared at her, then asked quietly, Do you have a kid? Maya smiled gently. I do. A little girl. She's about your age. Tyler swallowed, then whispered, Does she have to cut her hair too? Maya paused, then nodded slowly. Yes. She leaned in just a little. But she gets to be the boss when it happens. Tyler's expression changed. Just slightly. The boss? He repeated. And for the first time, the screaming stopped. Ethan and Sarah exchanged a quick glance. Because something had just shifted. Something small, but powerful. And no one in that room was prepared for what would happen next. The boss? Tyler repeated, his voice softer now, like he was holding on to the idea carefully, afraid it might disappear. Maya nodded gently, keeping her tone calm, steady, safe. Yeah, she said. My daughter doesn't like surprises either. So when it's time, she decides everything. Where we sit, how much we cut, even when we stop. Tyler slowly pushed himself up from the floor, his small hands still trembling slightly. She gets to say stop?" he asked. "Any time," Maya replied. "No questions. No pressure." For a moment, no one else spoke. Ethan stood frozen near the door, watching something he hadn't seen in months. His son, thinking instead of panicking, breathing instead of screaming. Sarah stepped forward, her tone tightening. "Tyler, we already discussed the proper way to do this," she said. "We have a structured plan." But Tyler flinched the second her voice rose. His shoulders tensed again. His hands moved slightly toward his ears. And just like that, the fragile calm began to crack. Maya noticed it instantly. She didn't raise her voice. Didn't rush. She simply spoke again, softer this time. "Hey, Chief." Tyler blinked. The word caught him off guard. "Chief?" he whispered. Maya gave a small smile. "That's what I call my daughter when she's in charge." Tyler looked down at his hands, then back at her. Can I be the chief too?" he asked. There it was. A tiny spark of hope, in a child who had been drowning in fear just moments ago. Maya didn't hesitate. "You already are," she said. Ethan exhaled slowly, almost like he had been holding his breath this whole time. But Sarah's patience was gone. "This is not appropriate," she said firmly. "You're confusing him. This isn't a game." Tyler's face tightened again. Confusion crept back in. Maya could feel the moment slipping. And this time, she made a choice. A quiet, bold one. She shifted slightly closer to the doorway, still keeping a respectful distance. "Tyler," she said gently, "if you were the chief, what would you do right now?" The question hung in the air. Simple, but powerful. Tyler frowned slightly, thinking. Really thinking. Not reacting. Not panicking. Thinking. I wouldn't be here," he said slowly. "This room is too loud." Maya nodded. "Okay. Then where would the chief go?" Tyler glanced toward the window. "Outside," he whispered. "Where it's quiet." Ethan's eyes widened slightly. He hadn't heard his son express a preference like that in weeks. "Outside," Maya repeated. "That sounds like a good plan." Sarah shook her head in disbelief. "This is exactly the problem. You're letting him avoid the situation instead of teaching him to cope with it." Maya didn't argue. She just looked at Ethan. For a brief second, their eyes met. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. A question. A risk. A choice. Ethan looked at his son again. Then back at Maya. "Let's try it," he said quietly. Sarah stared at him. "Mr. Campbell, this is highly unorthodox." "I said let's try it," Ethan repeated, firmer this time. The room fell silent again. Maya slowly stood up, giving Tyler space. "All right, Chief," she said softly. "Lead the way." Tyler hesitated. Then, cautiously, he stood up. His movements were still unsure, like he was expecting everything to collapse again. But no one rushed him. No one grabbed him. No one forced him. And step by step, he walked past Sarah, past his father, toward the hallway. Maya followed at a distance, Ethan right behind. The three of them moved through the mansion in silence, down the long hallway, past the grand staircase, until they reached the back doors that opened to the garden. Maya gently pushed the door open. Warm sunlight poured in. The sound of birds. Soft wind through the trees. Tyler stopped at the edge. His breathing slowed. His shoulders relaxed. Just a little. "It's quiet," he said. Maya smiled. "Yeah, good choice, Chief." He took a few steps forward onto the grass, then turned around. "And no scissors yet," he added quickly. Maya nodded without hesitation. "No scissors yet." Ethan watched the exchange, something unfamiliar rising in his chest. Not control. Not solutions. Something else. Hope. Real hope. From a woman who, just days ago, was quietly pushing a cleaning cart through his house. And now, she was reaching his son in a way no one else could. Tyler looked around the garden, then pointed toward a large oak tree in the distance. "There," he said. "I want to sit there." "Then that's where we go," Maya replied. They walked slowly toward the tree. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting soft shadows across the ground. Tyler sat down first, cross-legged, still cautious, but no longer afraid. Maya sat nearby, not too close, giving him space, respecting his world. Ethan remained standing for a moment, then slowly lowered himself onto a nearby chair, watching quietly. No instructions. No pressure. Just presence. Tyler picked at a small piece of grass, thinking, then looked up at Maya. "If I'm the chief," he said slowly, "then I decide everything, right?" Maya nodded. "Everything." He swallowed. "And if I say stop?" "We stop," she said gently. He looked at her for a long moment, as if testing her, as if trying to figure out if she really meant it. Then, he gave a small nod. "Okay," he whispered. Ethan leaned forward slightly, his heart pounding, because for the first time, his son wasn't running away. He was stepping forward, slowly, carefully, but willingly. Tyler looked down at his long hair, the strands falling into his eyes, then back at Maya. "Can we try?" he asked. And just like that, everything changed. Maya didn't move right away. She didn't rush to grab anything, didn't reach for tools, didn't break the moment. She simply looked at Tyler and nodded slowly. "Yeah, Chief," she said gently. "We can try." Tyler's fingers tightened slightly around the grass beneath him. "But not fast," he added quickly. "Not fast," Maya repeated. "And not a lot. Not a lot. And if I say stop." "We stop," she said, her voice steady, grounded. Tyler took a breath. A deeper one this time. Ethan watched from a few feet away, barely daring to blink. Every instinct in him wanted to step in, to control, to make sure nothing went wrong. But something stronger held him back. Trust. Not in a method. Not in a system. In her. Maya glanced around, then slowly reached into the small pouch she had brought from inside. She didn't hide the scissors. She didn't surprise him. She placed them gently on the ground between them. Not in her hand. Not near his head. Just there. Visible. Safe. Tyler's eyes locked onto them instantly. His body tensed. For a second, it looked like everything might fall apart again. Maya noticed. So she leaned back slightly, creating more space. "No one's touching them," she said softly. "They're just here, when you're ready." Tyler swallowed. His breathing grew a little uneven. But he didn't run. He didn't scream. He stayed. That alone was something no one had been able to achieve before. After a few seconds, Tyler slowly reached forward. Not for the scissors, but for a small strand of his own hair. He pulled it gently in front of his eyes. "I can't see the birds clearly," he said quietly. Maya smiled faintly. "Then maybe we help you see better," she replied. Tyler looked at the scissors again, then back at Maya. "Together?" he asked. "Together," she confirmed. Ethan felt his chest tighten. There was something about that word, together, that hit deeper than anything else. Because for months now, everything had felt like a battle. His son, against the world. And now, For the first time, it felt like someone was standing beside him instead of pushing him. Tyler slowly moved his hand toward the scissors. His fingers hovered above them, shaking, uncertain. Maya didn't guide him, didn't correct him. She just stayed still, present, patient. Tyler picked them up, carefully, like they might bite him. He held them awkwardly, his grip unsure. "They're cold," he whispered. Maya nodded. "Yeah, metal feels like that." He turned them slightly, watching how the light reflected off the blades. "They look sharp," he said. "They are," Maya replied honestly. "That's why we're careful. No lies, no sugarcoating, just truth, delivered gently." Tyler took another breath, then looked at her again. "Okay, hold with me." Maya slowly extended her hand, not grabbing, not taking control, just offering. Tyler placed his small hand over hers, then adjusted, until both of them were holding the scissors together. A shared grip, a shared decision. Ethan leaned forward slightly, his hands clasped tight. This was it, the moment no one thought was possible. Maya spoke softly. "Where does the chief want the first cut?" Tyler lifted the strand of hair again, the one falling into his eyes. "Here," he said. "All right," Maya whispered. They moved slowly. No sudden motion, no pressure, just a small, steady movement forward. Tyler's breathing grew faster. Maya felt it, so she paused. "Still okay?" she asked. Tyler nodded quickly. "Don't stop," he said. So they continued. The blades touched the strand. For a split second, Tyler froze. His entire body locked up. Ethan stood halfway out of his chair. But before panic could take over, Maya spoke again. Soft. "Come. You're doing it, Chief," she said. "You're in control." Tyler blinked. And then, snip. The sound was small. Almost nothing. But in that moment, it felt like the loudest sound in the world. The strand fell. Tyler's eyes widened. He looked at the piece of hair in his hand, then back at Maya. "I did it," he whispered. Maya smiled, her eyes warm. "You did." A small laugh escaped him. Soft, uncertain, but real. "I did it," he said again, louder this time. Ethan covered his mouth with his hand, his eyes filling instantly. He had prepared himself for another failure, another breakdown, another day of helplessness. But this was something else entirely. Tyler shifted slightly, more relaxed now, more curious than afraid. "Again?" he asked. Maya tilted her head playfully. "Only if the chief says so." Tyler nodded quickly. "Again." And so they did. One small cut at a time. Slow. Careful. Every move guided by him. Every second his choice. Minutes passed. Then more. The tension that once filled his body began to melt away. His shoulders dropped. His voice steadied. At one point, he even started talking. About birds. About how he liked the quiet. About how loud noises felt like too many people inside his head. Maya listened. Really listened. Not correcting. Not analyzing. Just hearing him. And something inside Tyler opened. Piece by piece. Like a door that had been locked for too long. Ethan sat there, watching it all unfold, feeling something shift deep inside him. All this time, he had been trying to fix things, control them, solve them, like a business problem. But his son wasn't a problem. He was a person. And maybe, just maybe, he didn't need fixing. He needed understanding. Time passed without anyone noticing, until finally, Tyler leaned back slightly. His hair shorter now, uneven in places, messy, but lighter, free from his eyes. He touched it gently, then looked at Maya. "I like it," he said. Maya smiled. "I do too." Tyler stood up suddenly and ran toward Ethan. "Dad, look," he said, almost out of breath. "I did it. I was the boss." Ethan dropped to his knees instantly, pulling him into a tight embrace. "I saw," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You were amazing." Tyler hugged him back. No fear, no resistance, just warmth. And as Ethan held his son, he looked up at Maya. Their eyes met again. This time, there was no hesitation, no doubt, just gratitude. Deep, overwhelming gratitude. But a few feet away, near the garden door, Sarah stood watching, her arms crossed tightly, her expression cold, and in her eyes, there was no relief, no joy, only something darker, something that didn't belong in a moment like this. And as she quietly turned away, it became clear. This wasn't over. Sarah didn't say a word as she walked back inside, but the sound of her heels on the marble floor, sharp, controlled, almost angry, echoed louder than any argument. Ethan noticed. He always noticed. Not because he trusted her anymore, but because something in his instincts had started to shift. He held Tyler a little tighter, as if protecting him from something unseen. Tyler pulled back slightly, still smiling, still proud. "Can we do it again tomorrow?" he asked, brushing his fingers through his uneven hair. "Maybe. Just a little more?" Ethan let out a soft breath. "Only if the chief says so," he replied gently. Tyler grinned. "I am the chief," he said. Maya watched them quietly, her hands resting loosely in her lap. There was a warmth in her chest she hadn't felt in a long time. Not just relief. Something deeper. Like watching a broken thread slowly begin to mend. But she didn't step forward. Didn't claim credit. Didn't interrupt the moment. Because she knew moments like this were fragile. They needed space to breathe. Tyler looked back at her. "Thank you," he said softly. The words were simple, but they carried something heavy, something honest. Maya's eyes softened. "You did all the hard work," she replied. He shook his head. "No, you didn't make me scared." That one sentence. It landed quietly, but it stayed. Ethan heard it, and it hit him harder than anything else that day. Because fear, that had been the center of everything. And somehow, she had taken it away without force, without pressure, without making his son feel small. Ethan stood slowly, still holding Tyler's hand. "We should get you cleaned up a bit," he said gently. "You've got hair all over you." Tyler nodded, then looked at Maya again. "You're coming too, right?" Maya hesitated, just for a second. Then she glanced at Ethan. He gave a small nod. It wasn't an order. It wasn't even a request. It was something else. Permission. Trust. Maya stood up. "Yeah, Chief. I'm coming." They walked back toward the house together. Not in silence this time. Tyler talked. Small things. Random things. But he talked. And every word felt like a step forward. Inside, the air felt different. Lighter. Less heavy than before. But that feeling didn't last long. Because as soon as they stepped into the hallway, Sarah was waiting. Standing near the base of the stairs. Arms crossed. Face unreadable. Ethan slowed down. Tyler instinctively moved a little closer to him. Maya stopped a step behind. Sarah's eyes moved from Tyler to Maya, then finally to Ethan. "Well," she said coolly, "that was quite the performance." Ethan didn't respond right away. He simply looked at her, carefully, measuring something. "It worked," he said finally. Sarah gave a tight smile. "Define worked." Ethan's voice stayed calm. He didn't scream. He didn't panic. He made the choice himself. Sarah let out a soft, almost amused breath. "And now he thinks he's in control of medical procedures," she replied. "That's not progress, Ethan. That's confusion." Tyler's grip tightened slightly around his father's hand. Maya noticed. So did Ethan. And something in him shifted again. A quiet line being drawn. "He felt safe," Ethan said, his tone firmer now. Sarah tilted her head. "Temporary comfort isn't the same as long-term development," she said. "You hired me to help your son function in the real world, not to let him create his own rules." Tyler's face changed. The lightness from moments ago dimmed. Maya felt it instantly. That fragile progress. Starting to slip. She stepped forward just slightly. Not to argue. Not to challenge. Just to soften the moment. "Maybe both can exist," she said gently. "Structure and choice." Sarah's eyes snapped toward her. Sharp. Cold. "And what exactly is your qualification for making that statement?" she asked. The question hung heavy in the air. Maya didn't answer right away. Because the truth was simple. She didn't have degrees. Didn't have certificates. Didn't have the kind of proof people respected in rooms like this. She just had experience, pain, and a child of her own. "I'm a mother," she said quietly. Sarah's expression didn't change. If anything, it hardened. "That's not a qualification," she replied flatly. Ethan stepped in before Maya could respond. "It was enough today," he said. Sarah looked at him. Really looked at him this time. And for the first time, there was tension between them that couldn't be hidden. "You're making a mistake," she said. "Maybe," Ethan replied. "But for the first time in months, my son isn't terrified." Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Then Sarah exhaled slowly. "Fine," she said. "If you want to turn this into a trial experiment, go ahead. But don't expect me to stand by while untrained methods interfere with his progress." Ethan didn't respond. Because deep down, he was starting to question what progress really meant. Sarah turned and walked away again. This time, slower, more deliberate. And something about it didn't feel like defeat. It felt like planning. Tyler looked up at his father. "Is she mad?" he asked quietly. Ethan knelt down in front of him. "No," he said softly. "She just sees things differently." Tyler frowned. "I don't like her way," he said. Ethan hesitated, then placed a hand gently on his son's shoulder. "We'll figure out what works for you," he said. Tyler nodded, satisfied with that answer. Then he looked at Maya again. "Can we go to the garden tomorrow too?" Maya smiled softly. "Only if the chief invites me." Tyler grinned. "You're invited." Ethan watched the exchange. And for the first time in a long while, he felt something close to peace. But later that evening, when the house had gone quiet again, and Tyler was asleep, Ethan sat alone in his study, the soft glow of his screen lighting the room. Emails, meetings, decisions, the world he knew how to control. But his mind wasn't there. It was in the garden, on the grass. In that moment, when everything changed, a soft knock came at the door. Ethan looked up. "Come in." The door opened slowly. Maya stepped inside, hesitant. Careful. I'm sorry to disturb you, she said. I just wanted to check if there's anything else you need before I head out. Ethan studied her for a moment. This woman. Simple clothes. Quiet voice. Tired eyes. And yet, she had done something no expert had managed to do. No, he said slowly. There's nothing I need. Maya nodded. All right. Good night, Mr. Campbell. She turned to leave. But just as she reached the door, Ethan spoke again. Maya. She paused, turned back. Yes. Ethan leaned forward slightly, his voice quieter now, more personal. How did you know? He asked. Maya frowned slightly. Know what? He held her gaze. How to reach him, like that. For a moment, Maya didn't answer. Because the truth wasn't something you could package neatly. It wasn't something you could learn from books. It came from somewhere deeper, somewhere painful. She took a small breath, then said softly, Because I've seen that kind of fear before. Her voice trailed off slightly, and I knew it wasn't something you fight. She looked down for a second, then back at him. It's something you hold, until it lets go. Ethan didn't speak. He just watched her. And in that quiet room, something unspoken began to form. Something neither of them fully understood yet. But before he could say anything else, his phone buzzed sharply on the desk. A new message. Unknown number. Ethan frowned and picked it up. As his eyes scanned the screen, his expression slowly changed. The warmth, gone. Replaced by something colder. Something serious. Maya noticed. What is it? She asked quietly. Ethan didn't answer right away. He just looked at the message again. Then finally said, We might have a problem. And just like that, the piece they had found began to crack. Maya felt the shift immediately. The air in the room changed. Ethan's posture stiffened, his eyes fixed on the phone like whatever he was reading had just pulled him out of that quiet, human moment, and dragged him back into something colder. Something harder. What happened? She asked again, a little more carefully this time. Ethan locked the screen slowly, like he needed a second to think before speaking. Then he stood up. It's nothing urgent, he said at first, but his voice didn't match the words. Maya didn't move, didn't push, but she didn't look away either, because she had seen that look before, on people who were trying to hold something in. Mr. Campbell, she said softly. Ethan exhaled, then ran a hand through his hair. It's from a legal office, he admitted. They're requesting a formal review of Tyler's care. Maya's chest tightened. A review? She repeated. He nodded. An anonymous complaint, he added, his jaw tightening slightly. They're questioning whether he's receiving appropriate professional support. The words landed heavy. Too heavy. Maya felt her stomach drop. She didn't need to ask who. They both already knew. Sarah. It wasn't said out loud, but it didn't need to be. Is that serious? Maya asked quietly. Ethan gave a small, humorless laugh. With people like me, everything is serious, he said. Especially when it involves my son. He walked past her slowly, setting the phone down on the desk. If they push this far enough, it can turn into an investigation, he continued. They'll want reports, documentation, proof that he's being treated under qualified supervision. Maya looked down at her hands. Rough. Worn. Hands that cleaned floors. Not hands that carried certificates. I'm not qualified, she said, almost to herself. Ethan turned back toward her. There was no hesitation in his voice this time. You helped him today, he said. That's more than anyone else has done in months. Maya swallowed. That doesn't matter to people like that, she replied softly. They don't see moments, they see titles. Silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable. Just real. Ethan leaned back slightly against the desk. "And what do you see?" he asked. Maya looked up, caught off guard by the question. "I see a boy who's scared," she said after a moment, "and a father who doesn't want to lose him." Ethan held her gaze. Something in his expression softened again, but only for a second, because reality was still there. "If this turns into something official," he said slowly, "they'll question everything. His routine, his care, who's involved in his daily life." Maya understood what he was saying, even before he said it. Her presence, her role, her influence, all of it could be turned against him. "You're saying I shouldn't be around him," she said quietly. Ethan didn't answer right away, because that wasn't what he wanted, but it was the truth they were both circling. "I'm saying," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "this might get complicated." Maya nodded slowly. Of course it would. Nothing in her life had ever been simple. She gave a small, understanding smile. "You should do what's best for him," she said. Ethan frowned slightly. "That's what I am trying to do." "No," Maya said gently. "You're trying to protect him." She took a small step back toward the door. "And sometimes that means making choices that don't feel right." Ethan watched her. Something about the way she said it. It sounded like she had lived that kind of choice before. "You've had to do that, haven't you?" he asked quietly. Maya didn't answer right away. Her eyes dropped for a moment. Then she nodded. "When you're raising a child alone," she said softly, "you learn real fast that love doesn't always look like what you want it to." Ethan felt that, deep, because for all his money, all his power, he had never felt more alone than he did after his wife was gone. And now, he was standing here, listening to a woman who had far less than him, speak with more certainty about love than he ever had. "I don't want to take that away from him," he said. Maya looked up. "Then don't," she replied. Ethan shook his head slightly. "It's not that simple." "It never is," she said. Another silence. Heavier this time. Because now they weren't just talking about Tyler. They were talking about choices. About consequences. About a system that didn't always understand people like him, or people like her. Maya reached for the door handle. "I should go," she said quietly. Ethan straightened slightly. "Maya." She paused, but didn't turn around. "If they come here asking questions," she said, her voice calm but firm, "just tell them the truth." Ethan watched her. "And what's that?" he asked. She finally turned back. "That I'm just someone who didn't want him to be scared," she said. Simple. Honest. And somehow stronger than anything else in that room. Ethan didn't respond, because there wasn't anything to argue with. Maya gave a small nod, then walked out. The door closed softly behind her, and Ethan stood there, alone again. But this time, it felt different. Not empty, just uncertain. He looked down at his phone again, at the message, at the words that threatened to pull everything apart just as it was beginning to come together. And for the first time in a long while, he wasn't sure which world he belonged to anymore. The one built on control, or the one built on trust. Upstairs, in a quiet room, Tyler shifted slightly in his sleep, his hand resting near his face, hair no longer covering his eyes. For once, his expression was peaceful, but somewhere in that house, something was already moving. Something quiet, calculated, and waiting. And by the time morning came, it wouldn't just be a question of what was right. It would be a question of what they were willing to risk. Morning came quietly, but the calm didn't last. Maya stepped into the mansion just after sunrise, her cleaning cart rolling softly across the floor. The air felt different again. Not heavy like before. Not peaceful either. Tense. Like something had already started, and she had just walked into the middle of it. She noticed it right away. The staff moved differently. Quieter. Careful. Avoiding eye contact. And then she saw him. Ethan stood near the large window at the end of the hallway, his back turned, phone pressed to his ear. "I understand," he was saying, his voice low but controlled. "But I'm telling you, there's nothing inappropriate happening here." A pause. His jaw tightened. "No. I won't remove her just because someone filed a complaint." Maya slowed her steps. Didn't interrupt. But she couldn't ignore it either. Ethan turned slightly, noticing her presence. Their eyes met for a brief second. He gave a small, almost apologetic look, then turned away again. "I'll handle it," he said firmly into the phone, then ended the call. Silence. The kind that comes after a storm starts forming. Maya approached slowly. "You didn't have to defend me," she said quietly. Ethan let out a breath. "It's not about defending you," he replied. "It's about not letting someone else control what happens to my son." Maya nodded, but her eyes searched his face. "You didn't sleep," she said. It wasn't a question. Ethan gave a faint, tired smile. "Does it show that much?" Maya didn't answer. Because it did. The exhaustion. The pressure, the weight of being both a father and everything else at once. Before she could say anything more, a small voice echoed down the hallway. "Is Maya here?" Both of them turned. Tyler stood at the top of the stairs, hair slightly messy, but no longer covering his eyes. No panic, no fear, just anticipation. Maya's face softened instantly. "I'm right here, Chief." Tyler hurried down the stairs. Not running, but faster than before. More confident. When he reached her, he stopped, then looked at her carefully. Like he was checking if something had changed overnight. "You came back," he said. Maya smiled gently. "Of course I did." Tyler nodded. Satisfied. Then he leaned in slightly. "Can we go to the garden?" he asked. "I want to show you something." Ethan watched the interaction quietly. There was something different about his son now. Still sensitive. Still careful. But stronger. Like yesterday had planted something inside him. Something that hadn't been there before. Maya glanced at Ethan. He gave a small nod. "Go ahead," he said. Tyler smiled. Then turned and started walking toward the back of the house, not even checking if she would follow. Because now, he trusted that she would. Maya followed behind him. Slow. Steady. And as they stepped outside, the morning light wrapped around them like a soft promise. Tyler walked straight to the oak tree. Then stopped. He pointed at a small patch of soil. "I want to plant something," he said. Maya crouched down beside him. "What kind of something?" Tyler thought for a second. "Something that grows slow," he said. "Not too fast." Maya nodded. "Slow is good." He looked at the ground again. Because fast things feel scary. Maya felt that, more than he knew. "Then we pick something that takes its time," she said. Tyler smiled slightly. "I like that." They began clearing a small space together. No rush. No pressure. Just hands in the soil. Quiet work. The kind that heals without saying much. From the patio, Ethan watched them. coffee untouched in his hand. Because his attention wasn't on anything else. It was on that simple moment. His son, kneeling in the dirt, talking, engaging, living, and Maya, right there beside him. Not leading, not controlling, just being there. For a second, Ethan allowed himself to believe that maybe everything would be okay. But that feeling didn't last. Because behind him, a voice broke the moment. Mr. Campbell. Ethan turned. One of the house staff stood near the doorway. "There are 2 people here to see you," he said. "They said it's urgent." Ethan's expression shifted instantly. "Did they give names?" The staff member nodded. "They're from Child Services." The words hit hard. Too fast. Too soon. Ethan set the coffee down without taking a sip. "Where are they?" "In the main sitting room." Ethan took a breath, then looked back toward the garden. Tyler was still there. Still smiling. Still unaware. Maya was helping him press soil over a small seed. Their voices low. "Come. Safe." Ethan closed his eyes for a brief second, then walked inside. The sitting room felt colder than the rest of the house. 2 people stood near the center. Formal. Neutral. Watching everything. Waiting. "Mr. Campbell," one of them said as he entered. Ethan nodded slightly. "I assume this is about the complaint." The woman in front stepped forward. "Yes," she said. "We've received a report regarding concerns about your son's care and supervision." Ethan kept his expression controlled. "And you came unannounced?" "It's standard procedure in cases like this." Ethan nodded slowly. Of course it was. Everything about this was standard, except the truth. "We'll need to ask a few questions," she continued. Ethan gestured calmly. "Go ahead." But as she opened her folder, her eyes shifted slightly, toward the garden, through the glass doors. She had seen them, Maya and Tyler, and something in her expression changed. Subtle, but noticeable. "Who is that woman?" she asked. Ethan followed her gaze. His jaw tightened just slightly. "That," he said carefully, "is someone my son trusts." The woman didn't respond right away. She simply watched, observed, measured, and as Tyler laughed softly in the distance, completely unaware of the eyes now studying him, the situation inside that house quietly took a turn, one that none of them could control anymore. The woman didn't respond right away. She simply watched, observed, measured, and as Tyler laughed softly in the distance, completely unaware of the eyes now studying him, something shifted in the room. Not suspicion. Curiosity. Ethan stood still, his hands loosely at his sides, but inside, everything was tight. Controlled. Ready. "Can we step outside?" the woman finally asked. Ethan hesitated for a second, then nodded. They walked toward the garden together. The morning air felt warmer out there, softer, a quiet contrast to the tension inside. Maya looked up as they approached. She immediately sensed it, the formality, the seriousness. Tyler, however, didn't notice. He was too focused on pressing the soil gently over the small patch they had just planted. "Don't push too hard," he said quietly. "It needs space." Maya smiled. "You're learning fast, Chief." Ethan stopped a few feet away. The officials stood beside him, watching, taking in every detail. Tyler's posture, his tone, his calm. The woman stepped forward slightly. "Hi, Tyler," she said, her voice soft but careful. "What are you doing?" Tyler glanced up briefly, then back at the soil. "I'm planting something," he said. It's slow. Why slow? She asked. Tyler thought for a second. Because slow things don't hurt your head, he replied. Silence. Not uncomfortable. Just real. The woman looked at Maya. And you are? Maya, she said simply. What is your role here, Maya? The man beside her asked. Maya paused. She could feel Ethan watching. Waiting. She didn't dress it up. Didn't try to sound more than she was. I help around the house, she said. And I sit with him when he needs it. The man wrote something down. The woman kept watching Tyler. How long has he been like this? She asked. Ethan answered this time. Since yesterday, he said. She looked at him. Just yesterday? Ethan nodded. That's when something changed. The woman's eyes moved between them again. Then she crouched down slightly, closer to Tyler. Do you like being out here? She asked. Tyler nodded. Yeah. It's my place. And Maya helps you here? Tyler looked at Maya. Then back at the woman. She doesn't help, he said. A small pause. She waits. The words landed gently, but they carried weight. The man stopped writing for a moment. The woman studied Tyler more closely now. And your nanny? She asked carefully. Does she help too? Tyler's expression shifted. Just slightly. The ease tightened. She tries to make me do things fast, he said. His fingers pressed into the soil. I don't like fast. The woman stood up slowly. She closed her folder. And for a moment, no one spoke. Ethan's heart was pounding. Because everything was balancing on something fragile. Something unseen. The woman turned toward him. Mr. Campbell, she said calmly, we'll need to review documentation and speak further, but... She paused. Her eyes softened just a little. This doesn't look like neglect. Ethan didn't react immediately. Because he wasn't sure he heard her right. It looks like a child who feels safe, she added. Maya looked down quietly. Tyler kept pressing the soil, unaware of the storm that had just passed over him. The man beside her nodded slightly. We'll still file a report, he said. But based on what we're seeing here, there's no immediate concern. Ethan exhaled. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But deeply. Like something heavy had just lifted off his chest. Thank you, he said. The woman gave a small nod. Then glanced once more at Tyler and Maya. Whatever you're doing, she said, don't replace it too quickly with something that looks better on paper. Ethan understood. More than she knew. They turned and walked back inside. And just like that, the threat that had been building began to fade. But not everything ends clean. Because later that afternoon, Sarah stood in the hallway. Her expression tight. Controlled. But underneath. Cracked. They dismissed it? She asked. Ethan stood across from her. Yes. Sarah let out a short breath. Almost a laugh. That's unbelievable. No, Ethan said calmly. What's unbelievable is that you tried to tear this apart. Sarah's eyes flashed. I was protecting him. You were protecting your authority, Ethan replied. The words hit hard. For a moment, Sarah didn't speak. Because deep down, she knew. And that truth was heavier than any argument. Ethan's voice softened slightly. You forgot something, he said. He's not a case. He's my son. Silence. Long. Then Sarah straightened. Professional again. Cold again. If you think this approach will last, she said, you're wrong. Ethan didn't argue. Because this time, he didn't need to. Sarah turned. And walked away. Not with power. Not with control. but with something quieter. Defeat. Days passed, then weeks, and slowly, the house changed. The silence that once filled it began to soften. Tyler spent his mornings in the garden, talking more, laughing more, choosing more. Maya was there, not as someone above him, not as someone controlling him, but beside him. And Ethan. He watched, learned, let go, little by little, until one afternoon, Tyler ran toward him, smiling wide. "Dad," he said, "look, I can do it myself now." And in that moment, Ethan realized something that no amount of money had ever taught him. His son was never broken. He was just waiting for someone to see him. That was the truth. The kind that doesn't come from degrees, or titles, or wealth, but from patience, from love, from choosing to understand instead of control. Because in the end, the richest man in the room wasn't the one with the most money. It was the one who learned how to love without fear. And the poorest person was never the one without wealth. It was the one who never learned how to care. If this story touched your heart, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from.